Okay, we have a major pro wrestling week, a major sports weekend. We got the championship games, championship Sunday, obviously, but Royal Rumble. I mean, come on. Tonight, Kaseya Center, final SmackDown, final stop before Royal Rumble. Tomorrow night, St. Petersburg Royal Rumble. I'm super excited. It'll be my third Royal Rumble I've ever attended. And Peter Rosenberg joining us here. Now, he's all over the place, obviously. He's got the K Show. He's all over WWE. You got the new show with Michelle Beadle. I mean, I can't keep track. You're wearing a bunch of different hats here. How do you have time to hop on board with me and talk a little bit wrestling, Peter?
Well, because you're a great guy, and this is a fun subject. So now this has kind of become a tradition. You usually call me up for two or three of the big ones every year. We jump on here and preview it, and it helps me get my stuff together before I got to work this weekend.
Thank you. Have you had your agent call WWE yet to say, listen, I need a bump when this Netflix money comes in?
It's funny. It's funny you should say that. No, I am. Listen, I very much want to stay there for a long time, and I definitely sent my agents the news. I said they were aware. Obviously, for me at this point, it wouldn't have a direct impact as the PLEs will continue to be on Peacock. But certainly, it's a thrilling time to be a part of the company, and even beyond sort of my specific on-air stuff that I do for them over the last 8 years, and really even longer. I've developed a relationship with so many different departments that I'm, involved with. So I really do, I'm very happy about the level of success. It's very cool. There was a period here that I'm sure you remember and spoke about, Jonathan, like when there were the rumors about where the rights deals would go. There was a lot of nervousness about where it was going to happen, and oh, what's it going to mean for the future of the business? And it just seems like, as kiss-assy as this sounds, and as much of a shill as I sound like, you just got to really say to Triple H and Nick Khan, they are knocking it out of the park. It just seems like each deal they make is smarter and better. And if you're involved in this company at all, I can't imagine how you see the Netflix deal is not a really, really positive thing. I think I know more people in my life currently with Netflix than USA. It's possible. So how can it be a bad thing? I'm stoked about it.
Is it possible that they're going to move Raw off of Mondays?
It's funny. I heard that's out there, that they have not locked in a day yet, because I guess what it'll lead to is a conversation with Netflix about where they think the best day for streaming would be. I don't think they would, but at the same time, I don't know, man. That Monday Night Football, 6 months a year, I just at times think why? Wouldn't you be better off on Tuesdays?
Yeah.
So it just seems to me that if you have to deal with Monday Night Football for 6 months a year, I'd at least consider it. It's not like we as fans are not going to follow it wherever it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much out there. AEW, even TNA Impact Wrestling, NJPW. There's so much out there. And then you see this deal, $5 billion, 10 years, Netflix, WWE. I mean, this is the boom period, right?
I think this is another one. I think this is the third true boom. And in this case, what I'm trying to figure out is, what is the ceiling here? Where can this thing go? Because it seems to keep getting bigger and more mainstream and more widely acceptable. And so I'm just curious to what is the highest height this thing can go to? That part's fascinating. I mean, here's I guess the reality I'd say is this. If you look at it numbers wise, in terms of the amount of people consuming wrestling, I still don't think we have surpassed where we were in the Attitude Era. Now, when you think about the fact that at one point Raw was getting 4s and 5s and Nitro was doing the same, you were talking about 8-9 million people were consuming wrestling on a Monday night at that time. I've often wondered, where did all those people go? Because now we're down to a couple of million people who consume it on a nightly basis. So maybe a next goal for this boom period would be getting it back to the point where at least WWE says, hey, we don't have 2 million people watching on Mondays. We have 5 million people watching on Mondays. And I think that is starting to become a more realistic thing as they understand and navigate the streamer world. And my guess is they'll be ahead of it. I mean, let's be honest. There was a lot of controversy when WWE took the Saudi deal a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A lot of controversy. That deal has aged from a public consciousness standpoint like fine wine. Everyone is taking the money now.
They're always ahead of the curve. They're always ahead of it.
And so it's the same thing here. You know, wow, you're going to move this huge episodic live show to a streamer. They're doing it first, and they will not be the last. And I think they will do very well because of it. So I have a lot of faith in these guys, man. I really do.
This Royal Rumble this weekend, I am very excited. It'll be the third I've ever attended. I was there in '91 during the Gulf War. Slaughter won the title. Hogan won the Royal Rumble. I was there in '16. Triple H, Roman had to defend against everybody. Triple H won the title. And now I'm bringing my younger son. It'll be his first Rumble. So it'll be my first one in a stadium. And I think this is going to be awesome this week. I think there is so much going on with this Royal Rumble. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I really don't have a good pick. I mean, you end up sort of finding yourself just restating the obvious, right? Like Cody Rhodes, CM Punk. But really, there's an endless array of possibilities when you think about. I stopped thinking about the winner a few years ago, and I started thinking more about the Final Four. And what does that mean? Because sometimes it's a lot easier to pick the winner than it is to pick the Final Four. And I'm very excited to see what they do. You have to imagine CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, if they weren't already going to be in there at the end, after that magical segment with them on Monday, you just have to imagine those two guys are going to have their moment in the ring at the Rumble. But who else is there at the end? I mean, it's been a monster year for Gunther, obviously. That wouldn't surprise anyone. Is it a returning Brock Lesnar? Obviously, people will speculate that The Rock is going to come back. Is that realistic or not? I don't know. And then who is sort of that wild card in the Final Four? Do we see a Montez Ford, whose new TV show with his wife starts in a couple of weeks? Do we see Montez Ford finally take that big step? A guy that I've kept an eye on recently a lot on SmackDown has been Santos Escobar. Who is that guy? Who is it? Dominic Mysterio, who, after having a gigantic year, has been a little bit lost in the sauce recently. So there are a lot of interesting possibilities, and that's sort of what I'm looking for on Saturday.
Dominic's an interesting one, but where do you think Tom and Nick will land? That's
a great point. I mean, you have to worry not only about Tom, but Nick, who's also dangerous.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's so good. It's so good what he's doing.
And what is the R-Truth spot going to be in the Rumble? I mean, how do you not give him? Can you imagine? Can you just imagine a world in which they at least made you think R-Truth could win the whole thing?
I think the crowd would be. They'd be so into it at the idea that, holy shit, is it possible that he's going to win? They'd be so into it. You're dead on.
Oh, I would love that. Even if you just somehow give him a run where you're you think it's going to happen, and then the Judgment Day eliminates him, whatever. There's so many options to make that awesome.
Oh, well, there was that moment, I don't know, it was 10, 12 years ago where the final two was Alberto Del Rio who won it and Santino Marella. And for a moment, the crowd thought Santino was about to win. You could do a little something like that with R-Truth.
It's the magical thing about pro wrestling is that things that are impossible are possible. And even when you know better than to think something could happen, there's always that chance. What if the craziest of things happens? I mean, you don't ever go into a sports season and the worst team in the league wins the title. That does not happen. It is impossible. I mean, we are staring here at a really fun championship weekend, and I would say 90% of football fans assume we will see San Francisco, Baltimore. And I will also say 75% of fans thought we'd see San Francisco, Baltimore when we got to the playoffs. It generally is going to go the way it's supposed to go.
Well, and that's why pro wrestling is the best, where, if you're going to travel to see your favorite sports team play in the AFC or NFC championship game, You might spend a ton of money and your team may get their shit kicked in and it might be terrible. If I travel to go see pro wrestling, they are programming the night for me to have the best possible time. Like, I'm guaranteed to have a great time on Saturday. There is nothing that's going to prevent that. That's why pro wrestling's the best, man. Do you have a favorite Royal Rumble moment growing up?
Let's see. I mean, I tend to go when I think Rumble, I tend to go 92.
Yeah.
Ric Flair. It's I don't know at the time what I thought, but I know now looking back on it to think about that moment, which would end up being such a brief moment in time. The WWE run of prime Ric Flair. It was such a short window, and the best moment was clearly that. I mean, he had the Mania match with Macho Man. That was cool too. But really, this was the highlight of maybe the greatest of all times only run in that era of WWE. And the fact that what did he do? I think he came in third.
Yeah.
And then goes the whole way. That's there. Obviously, the Rey Mysterio one, if you go a little bit later, the Rey Mysterio win, I think, is tremendous. But I don't know, man. I've had it's rarely a fail. Like, I've had a couple of Rumbles. There was that middle 2015, obviously, people did not enjoy the Roman win in Philadelphia. We know that. It'll be interesting to see the role Roman comes in and plays in Philadelphia at Mania 40 this year when you think about the history in Philadelphia with what a nightmare 2015 was. But during that era, 13, 14, 15, there were some wonky Rumbles there. But by and large, man, it always works.
You think we're getting Rock in Philadelphia?
Oh, I do. You know, I've been hearing people recently suggest that it won't be for a while and that this is a much longer play, you know, given maybe the board member thing. That there's some, you know, this is some sort of long-term play, the Netflix deal. I'm not overlooking it. Like, I'm looking at it plain Jane. The guy came out, made a point to call out Roman Reigns. He now clearly is back in with the company in a real way. It's WrestleMania 40. It's a nice round number. It's a great city to do it in. The business is booming. Like, to me, to wait another year when it's sitting right here, I don't see it. I think it's this year.
Does it need to have the title involved, or can you see a scenario this Saturday night where Roman loses?
It's hard for me to picture Roman losing at this point. I mean, I think it's hard for all of us, especially to see him losing it in like a wonky fatal four-way with people that he has like some story with, but not like a huge story with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, are the Roman fans, and let's just be real, the adult hardcore Roman Reigns fans are an odd bunch. Because I'm a Roman Reigns fan, and I'm an adult. But I mean the ones who like obsessively have their finger up, and they're like older than Roman Reigns. Like, I'm talking about full-on adults.
The ones who think he's actually a tribal chief.
Yeah, it seems that way. And who actually believe he's bigger than Hulk Hogan. He's the biggest who's ever walked the planet. No one should ever beat him. Those people are never going to be satisfied with the result. So it could happen in a wonky way this Saturday as well as it could another time, because I don't think they're ever going to want it to happen. And truthfully, no, I don't think the title has to be involved with The Rock at all. And I think there are people who would argue it's better if the title's not involved, because to have the title involved is to like kind of tip the hand to people that Roman's going to retain.
Yeah.
I think you could have it. I think the title always makes things seem bigger. I think you could not have it. It's not like they would never put the title on The Rock. Why not? Especially now. Why wouldn't they put the title on The Rock right now? If he's going to be a board member and be around for a while, why wouldn't? I mean, would it be the worst thing in the world that The Rock carries the title for 6 months? I mean, so the title being involved to me is more of a plus than a minus to me.
The men is very hard to predict. Do you have a prediction for the women?
Man, you know, I feel like in some ways that's harder, right? Because you have to imagine we're getting Becky and Rhea at this point at WrestleMania. I mean, that's sort of what it feels like, right? So then that would tell you Becky goes and wins this thing and calls out Rhea. But if we already think that Becky's going to get Rhea at WrestleMania, then is it someone else winning? Bayley?
That's what I'm rooting so hard. I'm rooting so hard for Bayley to win it. I think that's where the story is. I'm rooting very hard for Bayley to win it.
I agree too. I mean, we've been doing this really slow play, Bayley being sort of exiled. Doesn't it make sense for her to sort of have the moment and then call it out, and then you get probably babyface Bayley again? Give me the Bayley buddies. Give me all of that for a minute at least at WrestleMania. I think that would be pretty cool.
Excellent job as always, Peter. I'm super appreciative of your time. Tell everybody what you got going on, especially your new show with Michelle Beadle. Go ahead.
Yeah, the new show with Beadle is a really fun podcast. We do it every week. And it's basically her and I covering mostly sports, but we do hit pop culture. We did hit the Rumble this week. But the theme of the show is a Royal Rumble themed show. Every topic comes in. If it survives, it advances. If it's not good enough, it gets eliminated. And the end result is just me and my good friend, and I think everybody loves, Michelle Beadle, just shooting the you-know-what for an hour every week about everything. And you can find it with Wondery wherever you find podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter. Have a great weekend, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Have fun, dude. Text me when you get there.
All right.